Today I want to talk about 6 rules on how to become who you are in US, which I had to go through my difficulties and limitations of being Korean, but actually adjusting in US and still being who I am, which is I as Thomas Ko. Maybe as a Korean, but as somebody who's kind of mixed. Going through the culture shocks and going through a lot of difficulties of understanding the cultures and how I'll be able to not only survive, but be able to actually, do well in this country. And on top of that, how you develop yourself to go much more. And it takes risks. It takes you making decisions on certain things that you are not prepared for. It takes you to basically go to a road that is less traveled. Many people actually see that, oh, this is how Americans actually go through, therefore I need to go through this path. Maybe it's not true for you. Maybe it's not true for me. And certainly it was not true for me. So that's why I took the road that is less traveled. And that, I can certainly tell you, a lot of excitement. Probably good ones and the bad. Not always turns out to be successful. But it taught me a lot of things. I enjoyed every single bit of it. Okay? So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to just briefly talk about my life journey and what kind of things that I went through. So I went from South Korea to US at the age of 19. I came with my parents actually getting bankrupt in Korea. My parents didn't have any other options but to actually move out of the country because they didn't have money anymore. So I remember at the age of 19, we had 2 bags in my hands and $400 in total in cash. For us to be able to come to US in Virginia and settle there. In the apartment for 2 months, we actually, I didn't have a room, of course not, and we actually put the boxes, and then there was our table for meal. And that's how I lived. And I had to support my family right away. So I got a job, but nobody will hire me because I didn't know how to speak English at all. So I only got a job at the construction. So I actually was building the 12-story apartment building outside of Washington, D.C. And that's how I support my family, making about $300 every week, working from dawn to dusk, and just using my body as something that I can actually make a living for my family. After a while, I think this is good for me to actually talk about my working experiences. So. After construction, actually, I started to use my skills because I needed how to speak English a little better. So I got a job at taekwondo school teaching kids taekwondo, but that was not good enough. So I had to get a job at UPS at night. So basically, from about 3 to 9 o'clock working at the taekwondo school, and then from about midnight to like 7 a.m. in the morning working at UPS as loading trucks. That's what I did before I actually go to college. So taking the Saturday off. When then actually got a TOEFL, I didn't want to give up my education because my primary goal for US was coming and actually getting the best education that I can get. So I took my time off to actually take the exams and went to school. Luckily, actually, they accepted me. My score was very below, but thank God, actually, they accepted me to actually go to school in UVA. And UVA was fantastic, but still I had to work. So I continuously work as a taekwondo instructor. And then do my sometimes double shift, triple shift to be able to pay for all the things that I did. I don't think that's me. Maybe I clicked too much. And then, oops. Okay. All right. And then actually, while I was working in one of the technology company called Sybase, actually I attended Stanford as a grad school. That taught me a lot, and then actually started to work in the Silicon Valley. And then I actually left the Silicon Valley to come to city, and then I actually went back to Silicon Valley to actually start my own startup. So it's been about 20 years of career, and then it took some gutsy move, especially when I leave a city about July last year. There was a lot of complication because number one, I had a 1-year-old baby. At the time, he was 3 months old. And I already had 2 other kids. And then I had I live in suburban New Jersey, which means I have a big mortgage. City was paying me well. I was doing well. As Yankee shared about my application. Actually, this year in Spain, my application was selected as the best enterprise solution in the world. everything was going so well. And then I had to leave city. The only reason that I left, because I wasn't learning anymore. Everything was so predictable. The next day I would go back to the office. I knew exactly what's going to happen. I knew exactly who to talk to. I knew exactly what's going to happen afterwards, right? And then ever since I realized that learning was not there anymore in my work, it was starting to get boring, right? Because I didn't have to do a lot, and then still everything was being done. And since the lack of learning was actually losing big interest in myself, so I had to take something that is totally drastically different. That's the reason why I chose a startup, because I knew that it's not going to make a lot of money for me, but still I'm going to learn a lot. Something that I never would have learned if I stayed in city. So I basically took the 1 year of comparison that what I would learn if I jump out of the ship and start walking, trying to walk on the water versus like staying in the ship. And then it was a night and day differences. So that's why I had to make the choice. And thanks to my wife, even though she was pregnant and she had the baby and two other kids to carry, then she said, "We'll figure it out. We'll survive." So she actually asked me to just go ahead and follow my passion, my heart. So that's why I'm here. I'm actually much more energized, much more grateful for my family. Two things I learned out of this experience. One, whenever I go to a conference to speak as a city person, speaking on the things that I've done and things that will happen in the industry, I saw people lining up to actually, exchange business card and everything. I thought that, I'm great. I'm such a great speaker. That's all the reasons why all the people are standing and lining up. And actually, after I started my company, I went to the same conference and did the speak. I thought that I did much more, much better, right? It's much more interesting story and a much better story to tell. Nobody was lining up. That's when I realized everything was in motion, right? Everything was bubble. About everything that I thought that I had, sort of the popularity or sort of the things that I actually thought that I had was all bubble. It was nothing. At the end of the day, it was just me, who I am. That's the only thing that I had. So I had to basically walk once again with the bare feet and with my hands and not having anyone to actually ask to get it done. If I want to get a coffee, I got to do it myself. If I want to go to ATM to get money, I got to do it myself. If I want any project to be done, I got to do it myself. If I want any client, I got to run out. I got to go out. I got to talk. I got to call. I got to do everything by myself. And that humbled me. And humility is probably the biggest learning that I got by doing this. I'm not sure how successful you are as a business person or entrepreneur, how good you are. But once in a while, I think looking back, and then whether is this really true me, or is this something that I do versus I am, right? I think clear distinction between who you are versus what you do, I think sometimes is good for you to check. Second thing that I learned, you know what? I had my ideas. I had my culture. Everything that I've done so far put me where I am now and made me who I am. Things that I never learned before, now I learn. So therefore, I'm much more stronger. So therefore, I don't have to be disappointed by people not lining up. I don't have to get discouraged because people are not recognizing me and my company. I don't have to line up because I don't have to get disappointed if VC said that, oh, your idea sucks, or I don't think I'm going to give you money. That's okay, because no matter what they say, I'm going to still do the thing that I believe. And what I believe is most important thing. Maybe that's the only thing that matters. What I believe and what's important to me, and I have guts and my body and my power to do the thing once again, every single day, right? I'm getting up in the morning, and then actually my office is my home office, so I have probably about 20 seconds commute from my bedroom to my office. Whenever I go there, I'm excited again because this is the thing that I believe I want to do, and then I believe one day it will actually impact people. Right? So many of you are entrepreneurs, really understand who you are versus what you do, and then be able to follow your passion with guts and courage. Follow what you believe. I think it's probably the most important thing. I'm sure you guys are doing really well. So, So all these guys, they actually left the college and tried to actually pursue what they want to do. Do you recognize him?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I give a big kudos for him because Sai, before he became famous, actually he was the same kind of singer. The way that he is kind of crazy himself, he was like that all along. He's been in the music industry for the last 15 years. He's been producing and singing and doing the things that he is doing for the last 15 years. He hasn't changed. But one song just became a global hit, and he became a world star. But he didn't change any single thing. The music that he's doing, all the crazy stunts that he's doing on the music video, it was all him. It was very authentic. That's why all the Koreans actually love him, because he didn't change at all. It was who he is. It was nothing different. So I think today, rather than actually just talking about my story, I think what will be important and maybe beneficial for this particular time is that what I learned as rules on how to be who you are, and maybe what are the things that are important for you to be able to exercise and implement in your project or in your business or in your life, that will actually start distinguishing you who you are so that your authenticity will shine. Right? So, 6 rules of overcoming differences in US especially. Number 1, motivation 3.0. 3.0 means that there is a motivation 1.0 or motivation 2.0. Motivation 1.0 is something that will actually become much more like generic, like I'm hungry, so therefore I want to eat. I'm thirsty, I want to drink. Motivation 2.0 is a carrots and sticks. Okay. Oh, I'm gonna give you a reward, so that it will motivate you to actually work harder. Or I'm gonna give you a stick. I'm gonna give you an F, so that you will actually work harder. Believe it or not, school systems, much more students are motivated by fear of getting an F rather than actually getting motivated by getting an A. Right? In the work environment, same thing. You as an employer, probably you do the same thing to employee, and probably a lot of companies too. They give you a reward. If you do well, I'm going to give you a raise. I'm going to give you a bonus. I'm going to give you stock options. If you don't do well, I'm going to fire you. Right? So that motivates people, but the motivation is limited. The motivation 3.0 is more about what you believe, what's your passion. Right? Take a look at 9/11. All those firefighters, policemen, why did they actually, knowing that buildings and collapse and maybe they will actually end their life, why they actually still went into the building to save one more life? Why? That's motivation 3.0. And what you need to actually build as a foundation is, what's your motivation? What's your motivation of doing business or coming to US? And what's your motivation of actually doing the things that you're doing right now? What is true motivation? Is that just to be able to work hard and make some money and then actually live life well? I mean, to feed my family? Or do you have a passion for underprivileged kids? Do you have a passion for your own country, the people that you left back home? Do you have a passion for world hunger? Whatever that is, make sure that motivation is linked to your business and what you do. Because that's who you are. Your passion defines who you are, not what you do. A lot of times there's a disconnect, and our job is to make it connected. Who you are, what you're passionate, and what you do, so that it can actually be very authentic. That's the foundation. Second rule, communicate. I believe in US, communication plays a big part. You gotta pre-frame. If you actually want to do a business, you gotta pre-frame. So I'm about to tell you this. This is what I'm about to do. You gotta communicate always, and you gotta communicate factually. You gotta communicate well. Because without communications, a lot of times there's misunderstanding. Let's take a look at the example of husband and wife. Whenever I say, honey, can you do this? I said this, right? And she said, what is that? I said, this? You know? And she said, Okay, what is that? This is typical conversation in husband and wife because they expect each other to know what that is, right? But it doesn't work like that in the business, right? You gotta communicate. You cannot really expect your employee to understand everything that you desire to do, right? You cannot expect your clients to know what you're really aspiring or what you're trying to achieve. Your partners, they don't have a clue. Maybe they have probably a totally different way of understanding the business that you do. You gotta communicate. You gotta be able to put yourself in their shoes and be able to communicate, especially with the employees. US is one of the countries that has a lot of employees that are probably not have all the rights, even though they do, but they don't know how to exercise, right? All those, maybe not immigrant, but those illegal employees, right? Talk to them, understand, right? Maybe pick up a few Spanish vocabularies and talk to them, understand why they're actually here. Their family situations. I'm sure they got families back in Venezuela, Mexico, Bolivia, Peru, whatever that is. And Mexicans, I mean, a lot of Latin Americans, based on my understanding, they're very family-oriented people. And they are probably do the things that they are doing right now because of their family. So understand their kids, how they're growing up. I mean, are they actually growing well? Do they miss daddy? What can I do to help you? Right? Communication is the best way to show yourself that you're a caring person. Be authentic. Second is actually art of plus alpha. What that means is that whenever you do things, if people expect that this is what you're going to do, then there's no surprise. When there's no surprise, there's no fun. When there's no fun, the business doesn't go well, right? You're going to always have a plus alpha. Let me give you an example. Valentine's Day, I actually bring dozens of flowers to my wife. Does it surprise her? No, she expected it. Even though I got to do it with the obligation, right? Right? She expects, right? But let's say, okay, dozens of flowers, but I put, little heart-shaped candy inside just so she could find it as a surprise, right? And so she was looking at the flower, she's probably putting on the vase, and then she dropped the candy. It was heart-shaped. I said, I love you, Thomas. Right? Art of plus alpha. You gotta implement it on your business. You gotta do it on your clients, right? Clients love free stuff. But you say, I'm gonna give this for free. Come on, it's not a surprise. But sometimes you say, hey, but you've been a good client. Today is a sunny day. I'm so happy, so I'm gonna give this for free, right? Little surprise. It makes world difference because they don't expect. Surprise, a lot of times is equal to happiness, right? You gotta make people happy because that's the only emotion that makes people decide. Think about how many people go to a restaurant because they think that this is the best restaurant, best meal, or everything is healthy, and then I'm gonna get my worth of calorie by spending $20 there. No, I feel like eating a hamburger today. That's why I'm going, right? Everything is emotional decisions. You gotta focus on it because surprise is directly linked to the emotions. Third rule, speed over perfection. If you're thinking about, what, can I do this promotion today? Can I do this business tomorrow? Do I want to reach out to this client? Can I actually go and talk to that person? Forget about planning. Speed is more important than getting everything perfectly ready. Right? Because what? You can experiment. When you have a speed, you have an option to fail. And failure is good because failure is learning. I failed so many times. I don't know how many VC that I actually went and get rejected, but I slammed the door on my face. I was like, no, I don't want to talk to you. Who you are? I don't care about what you do, what you did before. But failure is good because it made me tough. And at the same time, I know how I could shorten my elevator speech down from 10 minutes to a few seconds, right? Because to a few seconds, maybe they will make a world of differences. Speed over perfection. Don't try to get it perfect because a lot of times we as an immigrant, we think that, I gotta be like Americans. I gotta have a perfect English, I gotta have a perfect slide, I gotta have a perfect business plan, I gotta have perfect funding, then, and only then, the bankers will actually give me the money. No. Communicate first. Go and talk to them first, right? See what the situation is. So you can have a maneuverability, right? To be able to move around, right? Speed over perfection is very, very important. And fourth, rule of 1 to 5. This is something that I try to implement as much as possible. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later too, but something that you're doing now, only one thing that you got to focus, okay? You cannot focus on too many things. You got to only focus on one thing. But at the same time, there's two things that you have in your mind to be able to actually plan for it. So what's going to come next? And 5 alternatives for you to go. So whenever you actually make one decision that actually, okay, I'm doing this promotions, then you got to have 2 things in your mind. What after this promotion, what are the consequences of 2 things that is going to happen, good and bad? And 5 alternatives. Okay, what are my alternatives? If it goes well, versus if it goes wrong, what are the options? So you got to have all this planned out. And actually, believe me, I had this plan when I started my company, right? I've been preparing for over a year when I was in city. And I thought that I had everything planned out. But it turned out to be everything that I planned out, actually nothing worked. So probably I got to change the rule to like something like, plus omega or something like that. So always expect the unexpected. But anyway, have a plan, because that's the only way, especially the failure cases, negative scenario, you got to actually plan out, right? A lot of times the fear or panic comes whenever you don't have full consequences of understanding what's going to happen. Such as, let's say I didn't actually give a flower to my wife on Valentine's Day, right? So I totally forgot, right? Okay, I get panic on the Valentine's Day. It's like, oh man, flower's so expensive. I cannot order it now because it may be delivered much later. I cannot pick it up now because they may have run out of inventory. What would I do? And then I start panicking around 3 p.m., right? Come on. There's nothing to panic about, because all you have to think about is, okay, what's the consequence? Okay, my wife will be upset, right? That's taken, right? I gotta take you like a man. Second, maybe I can come home and I can actually cook a dinner. Maybe they will actually soothe her. Or maybe I gotta go and actually write a nice piece of letter, right? That is much more authentic of me, because I'm not really a flower person, but I'm much more a writing person. So maybe I should do that, right? So after you go through all consequences of what possible actions that you can do, not getting a flower is not that bad, as you think, right? So you gotta go through the entire consequences to understand what the failure is like and what are the alternatives that you have. Because without that, a lot of times it comes as a panic, and panic is never a good thing for your business, especially with the employee situation, right? They come and go. Sometimes they do well, sometimes they don't do well. That's the nature of the business. Nothing is perfect. So that's why you gotta take through the entire consequences to understand what's your options and what's your decision is going to be. Finally, after all that, you gotta pursue much more higher calling. What you're meant to be. Why you are born here. Why you are here in this world, especially in U.S., somewhere in New York, somewhere in New Jersey, Connecticut. Why you are doing the things that you're doing. What is your calling? Is this something that you're meant to be? Is this something that you're meant to do? What is your heart says? Not what your brain says, that this is a logical thing to do, but what does your heart says? The biggest thing that I was able to do was actually a lot of times I made a decision because my heart says one thing, but my brain says totally opposite thing. For me to leave city, it was my heart rather than my brain. Because my brain, with my economic situations, with my kids and family, everything that was going well in the city, didn't make any sense whatsoever. But I follow my heart. Because my heart says something that this is not right. I'm getting bored, I'm not learning, and I'm not progressing. I'm not developing myself. And is this who you are? And I said, no, that's not who Thomas is. I didn't come to US just to settle down. Their book that I read is called Good to Great. And in that book, what that said is actually good is the enemy of great. Because you settle on good, you're never going to become great. And that's exactly the decision that I took. I wanted to do good, but I want to do great. I didn't come here just to be able to settle down and just live life as an American. No, because that's not who I am. I'm not American. I don't speak English well. I mean, my vocabulary is like fumbling once in a while. I don't have a perfect grammar. You know, I'm not American. I don't look like them. I don't talk like them. I'm different. And for me to do who I am, I need to follow my heart, because that's who I am. So 4 practices that I want you to think about. Thinking is actually a very important thing, just to be able to know who you are and then follow your heart. So I'll actually put 4 different quotes. 1, big picture thinking. You have to think anyway, so why not think big? Right? Come on. Don't settle in Staten Island where your market is, or Brooklyn, or your country. Come on. If you're going to plan for it, why don't you just go for the world? 6 billion people. 2, possibility thinking. Some men see things as they are and say, why? I dream of things that never were and say, why not? Look at Steve Jobs. Perfect example. Oh, why not? Why not? 3, strategy thinking. Each train has a destination, and that's how the train is called. You take the New Jersey Transit, right? Go to Woodbridge or Menlo Park. The train is not called as a New York train. The train is called as a New Jersey train, because it's heading towards that direction. That defines who you are, not who you are now. If you're heading to that one direction, and if that's the direction that you are really going with a full speed, and that's what defines you, even though you didn't arrive yet. Okay? I like this quote because I actually came up with it. Final one, focus thinking. One of the most important things about golf is the presence of clear goals. You see the pins and you know the par. It's neither too easy nor unattainable. Goals motivate. Clear goal. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. Don't settle on just as BAU, so business as usual. Right? Have a clear goals on how to develop, how to motivate, how to improve, how to make better relations with the employees. Have a clear goals. I mean, that's quantifiable too, right? You can do an employee survey. It's like, something I'm sure big corporation does, but small business, you can do that too. Understand 360 feedbacks of your employees and your customers and your partners, and see where they are, where you are, and how you can improve overall, right? Goals, have a clear goals, and that is very important because that will motivate you to actually do better. So I think this is it. This is my slide. So at the end of the day, I'm still on a journey. I'm still heading towards some directions that I believe and I'm passionate about. I'm not gonna stop until I actually get there. Well, even though I get there, I'm sure probably it's on the journey to actually do something else. So far, my life has been very interesting. It's never the way that I expected. There's some new small door that opened up to me that I never realized there was existing, but it actually happened to me. And actually, just to finally conclude, I started my startup fully believing that this is what I was going to do. But actually, the company, one company in South Korea actually reached out to me, and they've been actually trying to bring me on their board since actually last October. And with the final negotiation, actually, I decided to accept. And so I'll be moving to Samsung Electronics as a head of Samsung Pay, starting actually next month. Yeah, so it was hard for me to give up my company, but I believe that was the right thing to do for many different reasons, which I cannot really share because there are so many of them were right. But one thing that got me most interested in this particular position was that I always thought that me going back to my country, if I ever leave U.S. for whatever reason, it had to be something that I'm not replacing somebody who actually grew up in the company, in the country, right? So for me to take any job in South Korea, I have to make sure that this is something that I can do myself, that no one else can, right? They were looking for somebody who's in Wall Street, having enough mobile banking, the banking experiences on top of that, and have a mobile experiences and actually has done some global work. And who knows how to speak Korean perfectly and then be able to communicate. And then the search just came down to me. So I'm actually I'm flattered. I'm honored. But this time I'm actually going there with a different attitude. I go there with a humility, because that's what I learned. And I think during my 1 year of startup, I think that's probably the biggest thing that I learned. How I could truly become humble and knowing that all those things are bubble emotions, but just follow my heart and do the things that I am passionate about. Great, thank you.